Welcome to Effective Member-Supervisor Relationships, a webinar designed for AmeriCorps VISTA supervisors and leaders. We know in our own lives, the value of relationships is immeasurable. Within VISTA projects, the member-supervisor relationship has an impact on so many people and so many parts of the VISTA project and its success. This webinar provides strategies for intentionally creating and cultivating effective professional relationships between members and their supervisors. My name is Eric Powell, and I will be your host today. I'm a training specialist with the VISTA program at AmeriCorps headquarters in Washington, D.C. And from my previous experience serving as a member in 2006 and as a leader in 2008, I know the importance of an intentional, strong, and supportive relationship between the member and their supervisor. So I'm delighted to host today's webinar on a topic that has major impacts on your VISTA project. I'm also thrilled to be joined by our main presenter today, Lisa Reitmeyer. Lisa is a writer and an educator based in Portland, Oregon, who partners with nonprofits as a trainer, consultant, and writer. She's no stranger to national service, having served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Burkina Faso and an AmeriCorps member with Teachers College at Columbia University, where she graduated with her master's in education. Lisa, thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, and thank you, Eric. I'm delighted to be here today to discuss this topic and just how integral it is to VISTA members and their project success.
And I also want to introduce our guest speaker today, Micah Reed. Micah is a program and engagement coordinator at Focus Hope in Detroit, Michigan. Micah brings her relevant and hands-on experience at her VISTA project to shed some light and examples on how to have a strong professional relationship with members. Welcome, Micah.
Thanks, Eric. I've worked here at Focus Hope since about November 2022. I was born and raised in Detroit. I grew up in the neighborhood right around the corner from my organization. And then with my position, I handle all volunteer-based programs, such as the AmeriCorps VISTA program, our senior service project that we have with a local high school, along with planning and tracking our weekly volunteers. The best part about my job is meeting new people who are dedicated to helping to feed the community. I'm looking forward to sharing some of my experiences and hearing from each of you in our engagement activities.
Well, thank you both for joining us today. We're so excited to have you share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your experience. So Lisa, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Eric. So here's what I'm hoping we'll get out of our time together today. First, we're going to explore the foundations of strong relationships because foundations are essential to building anything. And a lot of you mentioned that in the opening chat, the work that you do, the things that you do to start building that foundation right away. Then we'll identify how to build and strengthen relationships between VISTA members and their supervisors so you can immediately put this into practice. Since foundations are essential to just about anything we do, let's discuss what that looks like in terms of a strong relationship between members and supervisors. Elements of just about any effective and positive working relationship, as well as at any level of any organization, include, and a lot of you mentioned these in the opening chat, respect, trust, open communication, working together to achieve agreed upon goals, support, and feedback. There may be others that you think of, but these are some of the major categories that apply to both VISTA members and employees. We've also heard VISTA members say that strong relationships with their supervisor need transparency, consistency, and safe spaces. They mention the need for their supervisors to establish clear expectations, roles, and boundaries, as well as to be willing to be wrong at times, to learn and to grow. It's critical that these elements are ongoing and mutual, reflecting a respect for each other's differences. All of these elements require time and effort, so I recommend that you start by reflecting on what you need to be comfortable and successful in your workplace, then advocating for yourself when necessary. Have an intentional and focused conversation with your members about what's important to them in their relationship with their supervisor and what they need out of the relationship to be successful during their service.
Lisa, I'm so glad that you shared that background. And now that you've done so, I'm really curious to ask what people think of when they hear the term strong relationships, since I'm guessing the answer is probably not the same for everyone. So for this activity, we're going to have you participate in a word cloud. To access the word cloud, simply click on the link that you'll see posted in the chat, or you can use your smartphone to scan the QR code that you see on the screen. Then we'll ask you to share your response to the question, when you hear the phrase strong relationships, what word comes to mind? We do ask that you only insert one word in each phrase on the screen. And in just a moment, we'll share our screen to see all the responses live. And again, we ask you to click on the link in the chat and go ahead and type and submit your response to the Mentimeter word cloud. And we'll see the responses coming in. Great to see some of the responses already. I see trust is a big one, as on the way this word cloud works is the larger the word on the screen, the more frequently that word was used. So trust and respect seem to be huge when it comes to strong relationships. See quite a bit of communication, being honest or honesty. Lisa, I know there's a lot of responses coming in, but as these are coming in, any quick thoughts that come to mind?
I noticed the word intentional and just I think that coming to a webinar like this and having these conversations with your colleagues is an intentional way to be thinking about this topic. So intentional and authenticity and being real, being open and being real, those are standing out to me, and honest about what you have as a capacity to offer the member and being authentic and real and transparent about that to promote trust and communication and honesty.
Absolutely. So many of these words are related and connected to each other, and they're all integral, as each of these words is extremely powerful on its own. But as you can see on the screen, collectively, these words carry a lot of weight in terms of relationships and really help you work with your members to build and cultivate those strong relationships with their supervisors. So we do say, remember that relationships are two ways. It does take both entities to make the relationship effective. Thank you very much for participating in this activity.
Eric, I agree that the word cloud activity is really powerful because the different responses that we saw further emphasize this idea that strong relationships will look different to each member and supervisor based on individual preferences and situations. However, there are several characteristics that typically define them. And those are regular, clear, and consistent communication, which of course popped up on the word cloud, respect and trust, which were the two biggest words on the word cloud, and then ongoing VISTA member support, which a few people also mentioned in the opening chat. I'll provide more context around each of these. Regular, clear, and consistent communication. Part of this is the need for members and supervisors to understand each other's preferred style for giving and receiving communication, which again helps build respect and trust, as well as avoid confusion and inefficiencies in corresponding. Maybe the member prefers receiving information, say, via email, or the supervisor prefers receiving information during in-person meetings. In a strong relationship, they will take the other person's preferences into account and adapt accordingly as they interact and involve each other. Members and supervisors may need to adjust their communication for better clarity and understanding, because what one person thinks is clear may not be clear to the other person. So making communication consistent helps to sustain the relationship and helps everyone feel included and like they can voice their own thoughts. For example, some members reported that they felt like their supervisors don't have time for them. Supervisors don't have regular communication points or intervals, and that some supervisors rarely communicate with the members at all. So consistent communication can help prevent and overcome these obstacles. We'll talk a little bit more about clear and consistent communication in a few moments. Respect and trust. So members and supervisors need to respect each other's styles and personalities. It does not mean that they always have to love or agree with an action or statement, but both individuals do need to respect each other's work. And they need to build that trust and work to sustain it in their relationship, as well as keep each other accountable for completing tasks and upholding their side of the professional relationship. When it comes to ongoing VISTA member support, it's really important for supervisors to provide VISTA members with ongoing support. This includes supporting members with VISTA program policies and regulations, with unpacking and understanding their VAD, their VISTA assignment description, and with other service-related needs the member may have. And to create and cultivate a meaningful professional relationship, supervisors must actively listen to members and guide them through challenges, as well as opportunities for growth as they adjust to the VISTA project and sponsoring organization. And this will help them feel like they're on the same team with their supervisor in the VISTA project, as well as more effectively serve the community, which will ultimately benefit both the VISTA project and the site. As a supervisor or leader, you have a critical role in ensuring a positive and productive experience for your VISTA members. That guidance can greatly strengthen the member's relationship with the supervisor and make a huge impact on the success of the project. So by providing the necessary support, feedback, and encouragement, you can help your member navigate the different stages of their service year. In doing so, you will not only help your member achieve their goals and accomplish their activities, but also contribute to the success of your project and community. In addition, when you regularly work to cultivate and sustain this mutually beneficial relationship with the VISTA. Our guest speaker, Micah, might have some insight into this. Micah, in your work, can you talk about a time when a positive relationship with a VISTA member made the project more successful?
Sure, yes, I'm happy to share my experience. Thanks, Lisa. When I first started in my position, there was a VISTA member who had started before I came in that summer. We connected and I learned more about what had occurred with her service. Our work relationship grew from there. She was from Kansas, and now that she's here in Detroit, I decided to ask her questions and things she'd like to do in the city, so I was able to help her with that. One thing that really helped me get to know her in the project itself was the scheduled one-on-one meetings that I have with my VISTA members each month. I let this VISTA member pick the date that was best for them, such as the first Monday or third Thursday of the month. Once we established this date, I sent their calendar invite for the both of us. Sometimes other project-related meetings occur and we reschedule meetings as needed. When we started to have those meetings, I was able to learn more about her and hear about how she was doing with the project. Our sessions were only scheduled for about an hour, but sometimes we would talk for so long that it would be over an hour before we actually finish, which benefited us a lot. And moving forward, this helped out a lot because in the end, she felt more comfortable talking with me. She understood what she needed to do to make sure everything in her bag was completed. Even now, she has moved on. We still connect sometimes on social media. I told her that she's welcome to come back here anytime so we can catch up. So that positive relationship was a direct result of my efforts early on in her service. And now I'll pass back over to Lisa so she can share some more tips for establishing strong relationships early.
Thank you, Micah. I love to hear how supervisors create that environment, sort of the detailed things they do that foster those strong relationships with their members, because sometimes it can be easier than others. And each member and supervisor is different, as we've said. So since members only serve for 1 year, it's important to make that intentional effort, another word that popped up in the word cloud, to start establishing the member supervisor's relationship early. For some, building an effective relationship might begin as early as the very first contact they have with the applicant after the individual submits their application. Technology can aid in cultivating these early relationships as you collaborate via email, phone, video calls, or with other channels. Think about it. That's really the first time that the applicant gets to know you and you get to know them. And first impressions really do matter. For some, it may start during or after the applicant's interview, when you're learning more about the applicant and they're learning about you. Just as you want to see if the applicant is a good fit for the position, the applicant wants to see if they're interested in working with you and your project. For all supervisors and leaders, the process should at least start no later than the member's first day of service, because relationships can take time to develop, and you want to establish and sustain that relationship as quickly as possible so it has the most impact during the member's term of service. Creating a strong relationship before the member starts serving can have several positive effects throughout the member's service. First, members can feel that support and know that they have someone to guide them through their service activities. This is especially true for situations where the supervisor is building the relationship during recruitment, the member and supervisor have a supportive foundation in place by the time the member service begins, so everyone can hit the ground running. This relationship can then motivate the member to continue with their service activities, leading the member to member retention. Effective member-supervisor relationships also encourage open communication to answer member questions and provide them information. Supervisors and leaders need to regularly be involved in communication with the member, being mindful of how simple words, perceptions, and body language can affect the relationship. Members may also find it easier to communicate their personal and professional development goals if they have an established and effective relationship with their supervisor. Knowing the member's goals helps you better support the member and the relationship with their supervisor. Micah, thanks again for joining us. It's so great to have you here to share your firsthand experience. What are some of the ways you've established closer relationships with your members?
Definitely. Generally, I like to get to know the member as a person early on by finding out more about them so they feel more comfortable with me. As I get to know them, I keep tabs on all the things they like. This just lets them know that I pay attention to them and makes them feel at home when they're serving here. I also have an open door policy for my office, and I always let members know that they're more than welcome to come in and chat with me. We have a small park near our building, so if the weather permits, and unfortunately right now it doesn't, I sometimes offer to go for a walk with them. I've learned that changing the environment can ease the relationship. Also, since I don't see the VISTA members as much due to the locations of our VISTA positions across different departments in our organization, I meet with all of them once a month in person. So this meeting creates community for them and it helps them get to know their peers, understand each other's roles. We all bond with each other this way. And if a meeting falls around a holiday, I'll plan like a small potluck or host the meeting at a restaurant for like a change of venue.
Lisa and Mikey, thank you so much for sharing that insight and practical information. It was jam-packed with ideas, examples, and actually quite a few recommendations. And there's so much more to come. But we're going to pause here because we'd like to hear from you. The question is, what is one thing that you do or perhaps have done early in your member service to help them build a strong member-supervisor relationship? We did ask a fairly similar question as the opening question, but this gives us more opportunity for additional people to respond and really put this in context with what Micah and Lisa have just shared. We'll be using the chat panel for this activity, so you can type your response and you'll see a little drop-down menu above the text field. Just make sure that toggles to everyone so that we can all see your response. And I'm seeing a few responses coming in already. Looks like Catherine has done surveys for new members to really get to know a little bit more about them, not just who they are and what they're interested in, but some of their favorites. So you can bring them a little treat from time to time, which is great. Sometimes a little treat or a little gift goes a long way. Sophia talks about giving them ideas, but also encouraging them to give input, which goes back to the comment earlier about how member-supervisor relationships are two ways, and it takes both entities to make it effective. Stephanie says holding weekly check-in meetings to make sure to stay engaged with the VISTA's work in progress. Seeing a lot of comments relating to consistent meetings to make sure that the member knows that they trust and they can respect that time, specifically with their supervisor. And I see Beth talks about member engagement days. Maybe if you have a chance to go on a short field trip, a site visit, something that connects to the member service, but also connects to who they are as a person. Lisa, I'm sure you've experienced a lot of these ideas in your work. Anything that resonates with you that you see?
Yeah, I'm just noticing some of the people who mentioned things like lunch and coffee. So kind of, and using food as a way to connect with people and making it feel a little bit more informal and natural. And then also just this idea of helping, I think someone had written something about helping a member set boundaries so that a member feels empowered to do the best job that they can do as a VISTA, but also take care of themselves outside of their work as a VISTA. So considering a member as like this whole person, which is really great. And then another, Gerard mentioned constant and consistent positive reinforcement as a way to make the member feel welcome, right? Feedback will obviously also be a part of it, and critical feedback can be really helpful, but that positive reinforcement, especially at the beginning, can really help to build that trust and respect. So thank you everyone for sharing your ideas. Let's think about your responses as we continue discussing the foundations of strong relationships and get more into detail about how to build and sustain strong member-supervisor relationships. Micah, you brought up some ideas on making connections, and although connections are also important between VISTA members and staff, I'll briefly insert the reminder here about the differences between VISTA members and staff. And this may already be familiar to you, but VISTA members are not employees of your organization, nor are they occasional volunteers. As a result, there are these sort of unique aspects to their role that will affect your professional relationship to them. Since VISTA members commit to serve full-time for 1 year, there's a much shorter time frame for you to create and cultivate that relationship with them. And also, since VISTA members cannot be terminated by their site or supervisor, only the AmeriCorps regional office can do that, it can be even more important for you to develop that effective relationship with your member and work to support them through both positive and challenging times. Other volunteers may also have important roles within the organization, but they may only volunteer once a month or once a week. So one benefit to having VISTA members is their consistent service with you and your organization. So capitalize on that time to connect with them. Even though VISTA members are not employed by your organization, you still need to connect them with stakeholders of your VISTA project. In some cases, it can be really challenging for staff, board members, community members to understand the purpose of a VISTA member or a VISTA project, what their role is, and how they might fit into the organization. So that includes knowing what VISTA members are and are not allowed to do as part of their service. So part of building that strong relationship between members and supervisors is facilitating introductions and connections to stakeholders. Notice I said facilitate and not take charge of. One way to strengthen that relationship is to show the member that you care about their professional growth by introducing them to other relationships and helping stakeholders and your members see why and how they should connect. This came up in the chat as well. Someone talked about helping them see their long-term career goals and helping members achieve those. But of course, the member also has to take initiative to maintain those relationships. So you might need to help your members set and maintain boundaries, as was noted, especially as it relates to their activities and other people potentially giving them tasks inside your office that may fall outside of their VAD. When the member knows that the supervisor has their back and supports them by shielding them from unapproved requests, that can significantly enhance the quality of the member-supervisor relationship. Now that we've explored the foundations of a strong member-supervisor relationship, let's examine how you can actually build and strengthen these relationships. Since we know just how critical communication is in any relationship, I'm going to briefly share a communication framework that supports strong leadership, the 5 C's. You want to make sure that your communication is always clear, concise, continuous, controlled, and customized. This is a tool to help you think through and be really intentional about your communication. So clear communication allows you to work with the members to understand what's being said right away. Verbal communication can be clearer if you use different tones of voice, pause periodically, and avoid speaking too softly or too quickly. You can clarify your writing by using bullet points or numbers, italicizing quotes, and making action steps stand out. Concise communication is basically the simplest possible way that you can phrase something while still sharing important context and considerations. So remember that less is more in this situation. When working with your members, start out with short sentences to get to the point and add more detail afterwards, only if you think your member will really benefit from it. Continuous communication means consistent communication and ensures that you provide your member with that ongoing support without overwhelming them. We suggest that you create and maintain regular meetings with members, schedule deadlines, and then ask for feedback from them about the frequency of your communication. Controlled communication is structured in a way that has the greatest impact for your member. Your style, tone, and timing all reflect the intent of your message, as well as your personality. For example, using large, bold text might be appropriate for an urgent request, but otherwise it might seem like you're yelling. You can also control the message you're giving by considering how the recipient might receive it. Try to make sure there'll be no surprises for them. Finally, customized communication takes your members' communication style and needs into account, adding a personal touch that will help you strengthen your relationship with them. Simply put, how one member and supervisor communicate might not be the same as how another set communicates. Customization makes it personal, and it makes a big impact.
It certainly does. Thank you, Lisa. Those 5 C's are integral to all of our relationships, especially between members and supervisors. So let's now hear from you. Again, we'll use the chat panel for this activity, and please make sure you're sending your message to everyone. The question we're asking this time is, which of the 5 C's would help strengthen your relationships? Feel free to share an example of how you would plan to apply it. And this question is for you, so please feel free to share any details so that other supervisors and leaders can adapt and perhaps even use the ideas and recommendations you have. But again, we're thinking about the 5 C's that Lisa just mentioned: clear, concise, continuous, controlled, customized. Which one of these do you think would help strengthen your relationships? Well, wait for a few responses coming in. I see customized. I'm guessing because, especially if you're a VISTA project that has multiple VISTA members and knowing that each relationship is not the same, that finding ways to customize or tailor your relationship with each member can make a huge impact. And I know earlier Lisa and a few other people in the chat mentioned continuous and regular communication, so I'm seeing a lot of that coming in about how important it is to have regular schedule and timing of meetings so that members know when they are, supervisors know when they are. These are really, really good information. I see a lot of continuous, some new words around clarity and adding some variations to the words, but definitely still keeping communication clear and understandable. Lisa, anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think this idea of customization, it's just reminding me that whenever I work with new clients, I often ask how they best like to communicate. And it's led me to, download new apps that I didn't have before and, have to adjust my workflow. And I think sometimes that can be really challenging because you feel overwhelmed by all the ways you're already communicating, and to add another way can seem at times frustrating. But I have found that I would rather spend the time that it takes for me to personally learn a new way of communicating with them, because then they respond right away, as opposed to, for example, sending an email that never gets replied to, or whatever the case may be. So the customization, while it might take a little bit more time and effort up front, it really does in the long run benefit. So that one popped up quite a bit. And then as far as consistency, right, it's, one idea on that I think about is just planning those meetings, just scheduling them and having them on your calendar. And so then you don't have to think about creating that time, but the time is already there and set aside. So thanks everyone for thinking about this. And I know each of you, your wheels are turning about what this might mean for you and your workflow. And that's really great. So thanks for sharing these excellent strategies here. Now that we've learned and reflected on these 5 C's, let's observe them in action. So Casey is midway through his VISTA service when he learns that his supervisor, Marty, will be transitioning to a different role in the organization and will no longer be supervising him. So Casey's new supervisor will be Emily. Casey's really nervous about this transition. Casey and Emily have their first meeting scheduled, but Casey arrives 15 minutes late. So we begin this conversation during Emily's first week as Casey's supervisor, and Casey arrives 15 minutes late to his first meeting with Emily. So for this conversation, we'll have our team member Cameron play the role of Casey and Elizabeth play the role of Emily.
Hi, Casey. Is everything okay? I noticed you were late, so I wanted to begin this morning by checking in with you. How are you?
Oh, sorry about that. Marty was flexible with our meeting times, and if one of us was late, we kind of just made it work or rescheduled.
Being on time is important, but not always possible, right? So I'm glad you're okay. First off, why don't we set up a regular weekly meeting? I'd like both of us to commit to be on time or let each other know in advance if we can't make it.
Okay, can we keep the current meeting time I have on my calendar?
Sure, this time works well for me too. I see from Marty's notes that you're a VISTA member, not a regular employee or a volunteer. I'd love to hear more about your role here.
Sure. So my VISTA project is mainly about designing evaluations for our after-school program. I have a document called a VAD that tells me what I'm supposed to be doing and when. Um, my VISTA position is only a year long and I'm about 6 months in now. I need a lot of support from Marty at first. I'm feeling more confident now, but I definitely need help sometimes.
Great. I'm very excited to work with you for the next 6 months. I don't know much about the VISTA program, but I'm looking forward to learning more about it too. I want you to know that I'm here to help you however I can. Together, I'm confident we can make your time here the best it can be for you and the whole organization. As your supervisor, I want to learn more about your professional and personal interests. Are there any skills you'd like to work on? Or if there's anything you'd like to discuss with me, don't hesitate to let me know during our check-ins. I'm also always open to hearing your thoughts and feedback about my supervision style.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So after meeting with Casey for a few weeks, Emily learns more about his preferences. We'll examine here how Emily continues to communicate with Casey. As we walk through this example, keep the 5 C's in mind and consider which strategies Emily is employing.
Casey told me that he prefers communicating over email when possible. We have weekly 30-minute meetings where he updates me on his progress and asks questions. Then I'll send him a recap email summing up our discussion and action items. I also encourage him to email me with any other questions or ideas outside of those meetings. Here's an example of one of those emails. Hi, Casey. Thank you for updating me on your progress today. You're doing a great job with this data collection, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your next steps. We'll meet again on Thursday, December 5th at 3 p.m. I'd like you to share your findings from the survey you gave to our teachers. I also appreciated your suggestion about designing another survey for students. It sounds like it could provide some valuable insights. Please go ahead and draft some possible questions for us to discuss next Thursday as well. Let me know if there's anything I can do to support you in the meantime.
So after hearing the part of the continued conversation between Emily and Casey, we'd like you to respond now to a quick poll that you'll see on the screen in just a moment. And for reference, you do have the email that Emily sent to Casey in the chat. In a moment, you'll see the poll on the screen, and the poll is going to ask you, which of the 5 C's did you notice Emily using in the email to Casey? And please select all that apply. So you can select more than one answer if you feel like there is multiple answers. But again, which of the 5 C's did you notice Emily using in the email to Casey? And you may have to click submit after you select your responses. Give you just a few more moments. Again, the email is posted in the chat for your reference. And this is just meant to be a fairly quick poll. Thank you for those who are responding. We'll give you about maybe 10 or 15 more seconds. Again, we're looking at clear, concise, continuous, controlled, customized. Which of these do you recognize in the email that Emily sent to Casey? About 5 more seconds. Almost there. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the poll. We'll briefly review the answers. So in this email, Emily used 3 of the 5 C's by making it clear, concise, and customized. So thank you so much for your thoughtful reflection on how the 5 C's look in practice in real life.
Yes, thank you. And as we know, not all relationships start that smoothly. And that was an example, and examples can be helpful, but that example shows how you can craft a message to try and avoid creating poor relationships. So let's discuss some common causes of poor member-supervisor relationships so you can know what to avoid. The first is a lack of understanding around the member experience or the member role. So as we previously talked about, members have a really different role in the organization than employees or volunteers, although they serve full-time. It can take time to fully understand how these differences affect the supervisor's leadership style, because members are not administrative assistants or interns, but national service participants and a valuable resource provided to enhance the organization's capacity. Next, some supervisors may have limited or no experience with supervising. Sponsoring organizations determine who will be the member supervisor. And just like Emily in our scenario, they may be new to supervising VISTA members. This means they might still be building the skills and knowledge supervisors need to successfully establish that strong relationship with the member. Other supervisors may have trouble making time for their members, especially if they're higher up in their organization's hierarchy or have other people reporting to them. They may feel like they're too busy to consistently check in with a member or to respond to inquiries. And this can cause the relationship to suffer since they're not connecting as often and members might not feel as supported. Finally, both supervisors and members may not have clear expectations of each other or their relationship. This makes it challenging for them to hold each other accountable or find concrete ways to improve their relationship. Those causes can lead to challenges that might arise in the process of navigating a new relationship between a supervisor and member. As we just mentioned, there might be a clash between the supervisor's expectation and the members, especially if the member does not have a lot of full-time professional work experience. Regardless of the member's previous experience, there may be a culture shock due to the culture of the supervisor, other project staff, the workplace, etc. And culture shock can challenge the member-supervisor relationship. Next, the supervisor might have a lack of understanding about the VISTA program, which really hurts in the formation of the relationship between members who expect supervisors to know the role of VISTA members. Or the member might misinterpret the role of a VISTA supervisor, project director, leader, or staff member. The member and the supervisor might also just have different personalities and styles in terms of their approach to work and communication. So how can we fix these issues? First and foremost, be sure to do your VISTA research. As a supervisor or a VISTA leader, it's imperative that you understand what the VISTA program is and what members do. This not only helps you adhere to the policies, but puts you in a better position to develop a strong relationship with members by supporting them in their tasks. You can do your research by looking over the VISTA Sponsor Handbook, the VISTA Member Handbook, attending these live webinars, watching recorded webinars at demand, viewing online courses on the VISTA campus, and more. Then you, alongside your VISTA member, can share that information about the role of a member with others at your organization. Next, work toward becoming the kind of leader you want to be. When I say leader here, I'm referring to anyone who's in a leadership role rather than the VISTA leader specifically. Whether you're a VISTA supervisor or a VISTA leader, you're responsible for supporting and guiding members throughout their service term. And there are a lot of great books, podcasts, and other resources in print and online about leadership, management, and supporting others. So use those resources along with your own motivation and passion to serve and put in the effort to become a good leader. That will have far-reaching impacts on not only your VISTA member, but others at your organization. Also, explore creative ways to address your specific problem and look for simple and innovative solutions. As Micah discussed, consider talking with your member while walking in the park, perhaps. Inspire your member's excitement by playing a short online game and then discussing how it relates to service. Look for other project and organization staff who should also connect with the member. Find ways to use technology to make check-ins with your VISTA member more consistent, engaging, and meaningful. Collaborate with other supervisors and leaders on live webinars and on VISTA Connect to share current strategies and develop new ideas. So learn from each other and support each other. Finally, be sure to get on the same page as your member. Simply asking your VISTA member what they expect from your relationship with you can really go a long way. If they don't know the answer right away, you may share with them your thoughts while encouraging them to form their own. Keep in mind, this is not the same as agreeing with everything, but it is about coming to an understanding. It's the perfect time to have a conversation and get on the same page about what each of you expect and need from the relationship. We never want problems to occur, but it's good to be prepared for them. So Micah, with all this information about challenges to the member-supervisor relationship, I'd love to hear how you have solved maybe one or a couple of these issues.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa. You briefly touched on some issues I've noticed between members and supervisors, which are a lack of VISTA knowledge and misinterpretation of their roles. So here at Focus Hope, staff members often have very little experience with AmeriCorps. So to combat this and help create better experience for both VISTA members and staff, I give full orientations to both groups in the beginning. During the orientation for supervisors, that will be working with the members directly. I sit down with them one-on-one to explain the basics about the VISTA program and what VISTA service might look like during the project here at Focus Hope. The orientation occurs after we create the VISTA project and assign the direct supervisor. This orientation helps the supervisor understand that members are not extra employees and that even though their work may look a little different, it's still beneficial to our organization. I also give the orientation again during what we call slow season, meaning we either don't have any VISTA members or only half of our normal number. During this refresher training to supervisors, I give tips on what they can connect with the member and how the colleagues can connect as well. I think this is beneficial because it keeps the supervisors prepared for when the next member begins their service. I attended the VISTA sponsor covenant in April 2024, which I loved absolutely the best, and provided me with a lot of great ways to help supervisors connect with members. If you haven't been to the conference, I highly recommend it. It's a great opportunity to connect with peers from other project sites. And also to try to prevent a clash in expectations or even a misunderstanding of them as the program administrator, I make sure to go over the VISTA assignment description or that in detail with both the supervisor and the member. This is because it is not uncommon for VISTA members and supervisors to not know what exactly they should be doing in the beginning of the member's service year. For supervisors, I explain to them what that work looks like in our organization and in their department specifically. After that, I have regular one-on-ones with supervisors where they can tell me about their experience with members. If they have any issues, I can use this time to help them develop solutions. I will also work with them on breaking the ice with their members at the beginning, offer some suggestions, such as having lunch together. The goal of these meetings is to address any problems early so we don't have to go a more serious route, such as formal correction, things like that. Newer supervisors often don't know how to work with VISTA members since they're not regular staff members. In their training, I mentioned tips they can use to connect with their members and ways they can problem solve. During the one-on-ones, I can then refer to this presentation to refresh their memory. Most of the time, though, we don't have many issues to address, so our one-on-ones just be a positive discussion, just like I have with the members, and we'll be talking about the members' progress. With members themselves, I will make sure to set clear expectations on my end at the beginning of service so I can hold them accountable for their responsibilities. I also let them know that they can talk to me about any issues they may be having with either their supervisor or their day-to-day activities. The rapport that I build with them beforehand often makes it easier for them to come with me with these issues. Can you hear me?
Oh.
Micah,
Thank you,
go
Micah.
ahead,
Sorry,
Lisa.
I'm here.
Sorry,
Thank
I thought I went out and nobody couldn't hear me. First, I was like, why is it quiet?
Thank you, Micah, so much for sharing. You have such an important role at your organization, and we know that some projects may not have someone in a role like yours who regularly talks with supervisors as well as members. And although members need to take their own responsibility and initiative for their side of the relationship, all supervisors and leaders have a role in supporting the member, including in connecting with their supervisor. So here's some more key ways to create strong relationships with your members. Communicate effectively and regularly so both entities understand each other's communication style and preferences. This applies to conversations with your members as well as communications with other project stakeholders about topics like training needs and areas of support. Engage in active listening where you're focused and paying attention, trying not to think about other things or crafting your response while they're talking, because members will seek guidance and help from their direct supervisor, and they'll often look to their leader for support. So please know that listening to them does not mean you're supposed to solve all their problems or change things just because the member wants you to. However, active listening does help you consider what situations need you to take action and what situations can be a teaching moment where you can help the member solve their own problem. Next, openly align your expectations in terms of a professional relationship. If there are disagreements on those expectations, find ways to align your understanding of the difference and encourage your members to manage up and tell you what they need, even if their opinion differs from yours. Finally, work collaboratively, work together. Obviously, your members will work on some things on their own and other things possibly with their supervisor, but discuss what you're working on. Find ways to work together. This doesn't mean that you're doing the members' work for them, just that you're coming together to talk about the work. Building bridges for enhanced collaboration. And Micah, I know you're excited to share some of your experiences with these strategies, so thank you.
That's right, Lisa. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is how important it is to put yourself in members' shoes. Everyone started in a new position, but the Vista is very unique and it can be especially hard for members to adjust to their role. So if you take a moment to think about how they may be feeling, you can do a better job at supporting them. I'd also say that you should always aim to offer solutions and not just corrections. Not everyone may get it on the first try, even after going through a million trainings. So if you were in a situation where you need to correct your members' work, be sure to give them a solution as well that works for both of you, excuse me. And I'm very big on holding people accountable for the work that they are required to do. But they need to have the right tools first. No one wants to be constantly told they are doing something wrong and not know what they can do to fix it. It's crucial. So treat your members with respect. Make sure they feel comfortable, especially if the conversation is particularly difficult. That's where the personal connections come in. Understanding your members' personality will make it easier to approach uncomfortable solutions with empathy and work collaboratively to solve problems.
Absolutely. Your role leading a VISTA member and possibly the rest of the team, your team at your organization, is simple but not easy. You connect people, challenge people, build a culture, and commit to where we're going. In order to lead, you have to take responsibility for both successes and disappointments, and hopefully there are a lot more successes. But when you embody and exhibit the attributes we've discussed earlier, the very attributes that you hope others demonstrate, like empathy, kindness, creativity, and trustworthiness, your team will follow you and trust you. As you encounter situations, you will learn to be able to turn challenges and failures into incredible opportunities to learn and grow. And your missteps will become gifts to your team and your organization. Thank you for taking responsibility for VISTA members and your VISTA project. As I'm sure you know, relationships are everything, and your leadership means everything to your members and the relationships you help them build with supervisors.
Thank you for that information. And we're going to pause here just for a moment to assess how well you've been following along. So you'll see a poll appear on your screen. And the scenario is Amy is a sponsor with 3 years of experience. Our organization is receiving a new VISTA member who will start their service in 30 days. And the question we want you to answer via the poll is, what should Amy do to build a strong relationship with the member during their first contact? Is it A, wait for the member to begin and supply them with the organization's handbook? B, introduce the member to a peer mentor on their first day? C, send an email to communicate background information about the organization and VAD activities? D, schedule a meeting for the first day to get to know the member. You can only select one, and we'll play music for about 30 to 45 seconds while you submit your response. Okay. Right. We'll give you about 5 more seconds. I see a few final responses coming in. Don't forget to click submit when you have your one answer selected. And we will go ahead and close the poll now, and we'll reveal the best answer. So in this question, the best answer here is C. Send an email to communicate background information about the organization and VAD activities. Thanks for participating. Great work on that activity. I do want to bring Lisa in one more time to share some amazing resources with us, and I encourage you to take time to examine them after this webinar.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, so I do have a few resources that I've personally found especially helpful. So first, I'd love to give credit where credit's due and pass along this resource to ND attendees who are interested in learning more about the topic. So the first resource is from LinkedIn and focuses on 10 ways to build a strong volunteer-staff relationship. It's great because it gives 5 recommendations from the volunteer perspective and 5 recommendations from the staff's perspective. Another resource is from Volunteer Match. It's a PDF of a PowerPoint that provides helpful insight into rethinking retention and how understanding strategic volunteer relationships has a bigger impact on the project and organization, as well as on the volunteer. As with any recommended resource, you should use it as appropriate and consider anything you may need to do to adapt it for your VISTA project. It's been a real pleasure to be here to talk about this topic together today and have you participate during this webinar.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Micah. I'll quickly say, remember, before we get to the questions, that you can visit learn.americorps.gov to access and log into the VISTA campus. If you don't yet have a VISTA campus, I would encourage you to create one for free. Once you log in, you'll see several clickable options in the top menu, including a calendar of upcoming webinars, as well as the all-new, yes, it's all new, the VISTA map, to connect with people located nearest you based on zip code. You can also click on the catalog link that you see on the screen here to view available learning paths for on-demand webinars, as well as self-directed online courses. There were questions about the recording of today's webinar. In a couple of days, it'll be posted in the Foundations of VISTA Member Supervision Learning Path for Supervisors, as well as in the VISTA Leader Roles Learning Path for Leaders. And of course, we encourage you to explore other learning paths as well. If it is your first time accessing the learning path, you'll have to click on the Enroll and Join buttons. It only takes a couple of quick steps, but once you've joined the learning path, you can browse through the available recorded webinars at your leisure. And then, as always, we strongly appreciate your feedback. So please take a moment, either now or soon after this webinar, to click on the link in the chat and respond to this 4 or 5 minute survey. We truly look at all of your feedback and value it as we improve webinars and create new webinars. So thank you so much for your questions. For your evaluations in advance. And speaking of questions, now that I'm getting tongue-tied, I did see one question. So Micah, I'll ask you if you have any advice on what do you do if you have a VISTA member who's working on a project and they either don't seem to respond to feedback or they're just not very responsive when it comes to making modifications. Do you have any ideas or recommendations from your experience on how to improve that situation?
So you're saying like, I'm trying, because I was thinking like while you were saying this question, I guess, can you say the question one more time just so I can make sure I'm clear before I do say my answer?
Sure, and it kind of ties back into the 5 C's that Lisa mentioned. Excuse me. But the question is, what do you do when your VISTA member is working on a project and doesn't respond to feedback or is not as comfortable making modifications? Do you have any recommendations for communication or ways to still strengthen that relationship so they kind of build trust and togetherness with their supervisor?
So I would say for me, like in this case, if this is like a VISTA who I've already built like that rapport with, I would kind of, talk to them, see how the particular project is going. And if they are comfortable and I'm hoping they would share, or I'll drop the question in like, hey, like, I noticed, a few things. Is there anything you need some help with? So just kind of explaining to them. I know I've had a VISTA before who didn't necessarily feel comfortable offering like suggestions or improvements when working with the project on the supervisor, because sometimes they don't want to, like overstep toes, whatever the case may be, because this is like their supervisor. But um, somebody mentioned this a while back, I think somebody in the chat, about setting that boundary for themselves, not only outside of work, but in work as well, but just, allowing them to feel more encouraged to speak up. So I would kind of just give them that like slight push, that encouragement, and hoping they bring it back. And in most cases, this can work. But if it's something that's happening again, then maybe it's a deeper issue, hoping that it's not. However, sometimes, folks just need a little push because they might be afraid to say certain things. So that's what I would do.
That is a great response, and I would just quickly add that ties in very well with what Lisa was saying about customized feedback, but also clear feedback. It could be that the clearer the feedback is and the more customized it is to the individual and what their communication style is, and all of this relates to relationships. There's so many facets that we couldn't go into every single aspect in this webinar, but the more you get to know your member and how they respond to different situations, as Micah and Lisa both said, the better your chances are to build that trust, build that honesty, and bring it all together so that there's mutual understanding. So it looks like those are all the questions that came in. Thank you so much for the question that came in and other questions that may be on your mind. I do want to briefly highlight our next webinar for sponsors and leaders is next month, Thursday, December 19th at 3 p.m. Eastern. It's on collaboration for member skill development, really helping create collaboration opportunities for members to build their skills. The registration link is in the chat. It's also available on the VISTA campus calendar. And I sincerely want to thank our presenter, Lisa Reitmeyer, for sharing with us today, our guest speaker, Micah Reed, our instructional designers, Vanessa Francis, Cameron Greenoff, and Elizabeth Floyd, our senior training specialist, Andy King, and our producer, Christina Quinone Stella and Tessa Marshall. Most of all, thank you so much for participating and being part of AmeriCorps and the VISTA program. This concludes our webinar. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining.